Hi, thanks for tuning in to Jumpstart Session 3 Organizing Your Work and Life. In this session, we're going to talk about the importance of staying organized and managing your academic, personal, and professional commitments. There can be lots of challenges when it comes to keeping up with our commitments, whether it's time constraints and finding time to get done all of the things that you need to get done, whether it's motivation, procrastination, being able to navigate through multiple channels of information, not taking care of our health and well being, having trouble prioritizing or managing multiple competing priorities, or distractors and time wasters that are so prevalent in our everyday lives. We face a lot of challenges when it comes to keeping up with our commitments. Although I'm going to share some productivity tips and tools that may help you with overcoming these challenges, it's important to remember that you're going to have to find what works for you. Personal productivity is just that, it's personal. And you may have to try out a few different things before you find the perfect solution for your life, for the way you work, and the commitments that you have. When I think of personal productivity, I often think of these four categories of things that are important for me to manage in order to meet all of my responsibilities. It's important to manage my task, it's important to manage my time, it's important to manage the materials and content that I'm using, and it's also important to manage my energy and my capacity. As you're figuring out what works for you in terms of personal productivity and staying organized, you may find that you're using multiple tools to manage multiple areas, or you may find one tool that works well for you with all of those areas. It's really up to your preference. And again, going through the process of finding what works for you. When it comes to managing tasks, I think the first and most important step is to create your to do list. Get those things that are floating around in your head on paper, or if you're using digital tools, a digital to do list. That way, you know the landscape of all of the things that you are trying to accomplish. Once you've done that, your next step is to prioritize your tasks so you know what's important to work on first. And there are a couple of different ways you can approach prioritizing your tasks. The first method we're going to talk about is the Eisenhower matrix. And for this productivity tool, you're organizing your task by urgency and importance. Those tasks that are both urgent and important are the tasks that you need to do now. So those are your priorities. Tasks that are important but not necessarily urgent, you just need to find time that you're going to do them. So go ahead and pick a date and a time that you're going to commit to doing those tasks that are not urgent but they're still important. For tasks that are urgent, but they're not necessarily important, see if there's someone you can delegate those things to. Who do you have on your team at work or in a group project, or people who can support you that maybe some of those things can be delegated? Now, remember, when it comes to your academic work, we need to have academic integrity, so we should not be delegating any of our assignments to anyone else. But for things in our personal life or organizations and things that we are a part of, it might be good to have people help you accomplish those goals and complete the tasks that you need to do. And then those things that are not urgent and not important, let's go ahead and delete them. Let's clear up some space in our brain, in our calendar, in our to-do list, because that's not where we should be focusing our attention. We have other things that are a higher priority. Another method that might work for you to prioritize your task is the ABC method. And you're pretty much assigning a priority level to all of your tasks. And so your A level tasks are your tasks that are high priority. They are the most important, most critical, most urgent things, things that have close deadlines, and that you need to focus most of your attention on. The B level tasks are things that you should do. And so they're a medium priority. They're important maybe over time, but they're not quite urgent. They're not as critical as your priority A items, but they still have a high level of importance. And so you need to make sure that you get them done. So once you complete your priority A items, you then start working on priority B. And then your priority C items, they're nice to do, right? So there's a lower priority, at least at this time. Maybe the stakes are a little bit lower. There's less consequences if they're not done. And so it'd be nice to do them. So if you have extra time once you finish your priority A and your priority B task, then you move along to priority C. But they're those tasks though that if you don't get them done, it's not the end of the world. They are things that can be prioritized a little bit lower on your to-do list. Another method that might help you prioritize your task is the 135 method. We do not have an endless amount of hours or energy or time in a day to tackle a never ending to do list, and we have to make some choices. And this is a method that might help you choose what to work on. For the 135 method, you are going to pick one big thing to accomplish that day, something that's going to take you a lot of time and energy, that's a big project for you. Then you are going to pick three medium things you want to accomplish. And then you are going to pick five small things that you can get done for the day. This gives you a good balance of things that you're working on. It's a great way to make sure that you're not burning yourself out or getting exhausted trying to tackle a bunch of big tasks all in one day. And it helps you kind of spread out that energy and that time across your to do list so that you are able to get things done. Other things that help people successfully manage their task are time blocking. And so, blocking off time on your calendar where you are going to complete specific tasks. Another thing that might work well for you is batching similar tasks together. And so, if you have a lot of reading assignments and it makes sense for you to pick a day where that is a reading day for you, and the goal for the day is to get through your reading assignments, that may be a great way to batch similar tasks. If you want to go through all of your emails and make sure that you make notes or put things on your calendar that come from your email inbox, and you're going to use that to go through your UNT email, your work email, your personal email, you're going to set aside time to work on similar things together because your brain is already in that mode of doing that type of work. In addition to managing our task or the things that we need to do, it's also important that we manage our time. That's what helps us make sure that we are where we're supposed to be when we're supposed to be there, and that we stay on top of when things are due and things that are time sensitive. And so, one of the basic and I think things that help a lot of people in managing their time is simply keeping a calendar or a planner. Give yourself your own deadlines to stay ahead. One thing that I always do to give myself a little bit of a cushion is that if something is due that I need to turn into someone else on a specific day, I try to give myself a deadline a couple of days before. That way, if anything happens or if I have some unexpected challenge working on the project, that I have a little bit of a cushion so that I can still meet the real deadline that I have to turn it into someone else. It's also important to be aware and find ways to reduce our time wasters and our distractions. So whether that's using do not disturb on your phone or, closing off your web browser so you don't get distracted and find that, oh my gosh, I just went down a rabbit hole for 3 hours and I did not get done the things that I intended to get done. And so do what you can to minimize your time wasters and distractions. And a lot of times we don't even realize how much time we are spending on distractions and time wasters in a day unless we specifically pay attention to those things. We talked a little bit about this on the previous side, time blocking, setting aside specific time to work on specific tasks. I also think it's important that before you commit to something, whether it's something someone's asking you to do or committing to be somewhere at a specific time and date, is that you check your calendar before you commit. Sometimes we just say yes to things without even realizing, oh my gosh, that's a really busy week for me. I probably should have said no to whatever someone was asking me to do. And then I also think it's important to take breaks. Build breaks into your time management. Your brain is going to need a break. You're going to need a break. People are more productive when they have time to step back, to refresh, and then come back to working on the things that they're working on. Another thing that's important is making sure that our materials and content are organized so that we can easily find them. Imagine you've time blocked time to do a study session for a class. You've written out what it is that you need to cover. You've prioritized what it is you need to do and what you need to accomplish during the study time. And then you realize you get to the library and you forgot the overview of the assignment, the handout your instructor gave you. Ah! And so it's important that we know where the materials are that we need to work on something. And so if you are a person who likes physical paper things, you can use a notebook or a binder to keep your syllabus, to keep your handouts, to keep your notes and instructions for all of your assignments in one place so that when you do have the time to sit down and work, you can easily access all of the materials that you're needing. If you're doing this digitally, which I imagine if you're an online student, a lot of you are, making sure that you organize your digital files. Yes, you can search for things, but sometimes we don't name things in a way that are easy for us to search them later on. And so, one thing that worked for me when I was an online student was just to create a folder for each class that I was in and to keep all of the materials for that class in that folder so that I knew I had access to it. I also think it's important, especially if you're working on group projects, to create email folders so that you have communications from your class in a way that's easy to find, separate from all of the other emails that you're receiving. And so, if you need to create rules to help you prioritize important communication, whether those are communications from your instructors or communications from your teammates, if you're working on group projects together, you want to make sure that those things come to the top of all of the things that you're receiving in your email and that they're easy to find so that when you're ready to sit down and work that you have everything that you need. One thing that I think is really important, but sometimes is forgotten in the personal productivity conversation, is managing your energy and capacity. Just because I have one free hour in the day after all of my tasks, after all of my meetings, after all of the things that I've had to do, I have this one free hour. Just because it's available doesn't necessarily mean that I should fill that one free hour with yet another thing to do, because I may not have the energy. I'm probably tired if my day was jam packed. And I think it's important that we are listening to our bodies and making sure that just because I have an hour available, that I'm thinking about whether or not I have the capacity to take on yet another thing in that time frame. And so I think things that help us manage our energy and capacity is one, identifying when you work best. For me, I am typically best after I've got a couple of cups of coffee and have eased into my day. So, like 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. is like prime work time for me. That's just the time of the day where I find myself to be more productive. And all of you are going to have your own times that you find are more productive. So, pay attention to those things and try to optimize the things that you need to get done during those times when you are the most productive. Another thing that I recommend is Eat That Frog. It's a great book if you haven't read it, but what it talks about is tackling your most challenging task first. And the reason why is that if it's something that we are dreading doing, if it's something that's giving us a little bit of anxiety, so we haven't started on it, we are losing energy throughout the day as we are worrying about this task that we have not started. And so, a lot of times, if you just take on that challenging task, you can start your day with a win because it was the most stressful thing, the thing you were most worried about today is already done. And you can now cruise through the rest of your day. And then again, and we mentioned this before, making sure that you make time for rest and to take breaks. It's important that we refresh. It's important that if you've been doing a long study session or you've been working for a while at your desk, that you get up and you take a walk, and things like that. Give your mind a chance to refresh, and then you can come back to whatever it is that you're doing a little bit more rested and with fresh eyes. There are a lot of tools available when it comes to personal productivity. And so I'm just truly listing out a small, small amount in the vast, widespread landscape of what is available. So, as a UNT student, you have your Microsoft 365 account, and I recommend that you start there and see if those tools work for you. It's nice because it already works in kind of the technology landscape that we use here at UNT. And so, you've got your Outlook calendar, you've got Microsoft Teams, you can create teams for um, your teammates or group members that you're working on group projects with. You can use the Planner app to delegate tasks or to prioritize things or keep track of what the status of a project you're working on is. And you've got OneNote, a place where you can keep your notes and things like that organized. I know some people really like Google products, and so the Google Suite also has a suite of productivity products, whether it is a to-do list app or using your Google Calendar and things like that. Those are all things that you can use to help organize your work and your life. One that I'm hearing more and more about from college students is Notion. People building out habit trackers and putting their calendar and including motivational quotes and all kinds of things, creating their second brain in Notion. And so that might be something that you can look into. Note taking apps that work for folks, Evernote, GoodNotes, if you're on an iPad or a tablet, those are all great things to help you organize your notes. And so, again, personal productivity is personal. So, play around with some of these different tools and figure out what works for you. So, if you're like me and one day I just went down this rabbit hole of personal productivity, here are some emerging topics that you might find interesting to explore to help you figure out your method of staying organized. So, the first one is just going to be personal productivity. And so, if you just search it, Google it, do a little bit of research, you'll hear about all kinds of methods and tools people are using to help themselves be more productive and accomplish more. Another one that I'm hearing thrown around a little bit is a life operating system, right? So, what are my processes? What are my tools to just manage my entire life, whether it's personal, work, academic, all of those things? And then for those of you, especially graduate students that are doing a lot of research, that are reading a lot of articles and having to keep track of a lot of data and content that they're taking in, personal knowledge management might be something that you're looking into to help you organize your thoughts and keep track of the things that you are reading. And so, again, be curious and explore these things so that you can try things out and see what you think will work for you. All right, and similar to our last session, I'm always going to leave you with a student success tip for online students. And so, my tip, there's kind of three bullet points, sorry. My tip for today, it's all around being organized. And so, one, if you haven't already, add all of your assignments, important dates from your syllabus to your calendar or planner. Schedule time at the beginning of each week to plan and prepare your week. A lot of times when I hear from people, oh, I have this planner, but I don't use it, or I forget to check it, or I forget to add things to it, it helps to have a specific time that you are intentionally going to open up that planner and think about and organize your work. And then similarly, at the beginning of the week, taking time to plan. At the end of the week, take time to reflect and think about what went well, where you can improve, wrap things up so that you can go into the next week with a clean, fresh start. So, those are the tips that I have for you today. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this Jumpstart session. If you have any questions, if you have help navigating not just this content, but just your experience as an online student, please reach out to me. I am always happy to help, and you can see all of my contact information there on the screen. Have a good one.